So many messages about this. Lots of people getting in touch, sharing similar stories. So Matt's back to fight your rights to do with service charges.
Yeah, and it's worth just reminding ourselves what a service charge is. These are usually when you've bought a property leasehold, typically a flat, which is part of a bigger block, and then the freeholder, the person who holds the freehold, which we might call a landlord, that person then charges you for things like gardening, for maintenance of the building, sometimes big costs as well when there are structural things that need changing. On top of that, you get things like buildings insurance as well, ground rent. And what we're seeing, what we saw in the film, and, you know, as a result of that, so many messages from people saying, why have these service charges gone up so much more, to the point where they're almost matching my mortgage? And, you know, we're all working at the edges of our affordability. Why is it now we're being pushed beyond that by these service charges?
And like you say there, Matt, lots of you have been getting in touch with price hikes that you've experienced with your own service charges. Jean says here her charge has gone up by 133%, and she actually believes that she receives a substandard service.
Shan says hers has gone up from £146 to £320 per month in the last year. Matt, I know you're not surprised by this, but it's incredible, isn't it? It's an increase of almost 120% for Shan.
Yeah, and, you know, it's clear that there are cases of freeholders who are just feeling like they can turn the tap on any time they want and get more money out of these leaseholders. There is no cap on service charges, on any of these charges. And so, you know, leaseholders really have to be on their guard. They have to work together. They have to fight back when it looks like these service charges and the other associated charges have gone sky high, as they have.
Yeah, so can people do anything? What are people's rights when it comes to increasing that, or if that service charge has been increased?
OK, the first thing that is your right, and you have to exercise it, is to request a breakdown of those costs, where they've come from, to have matching receipts as well. And this is a very straightforward process. You can request the breakdown, and they should give it to you within 1 month, and that's the last year of charges, to match those costs against the invoices, the receipts that they offer, and make sure that they make sense. Now, there are other rules here. There's a thing called Section 20 of the Landlord and Tenant Act 1985. That means that any costs on any charges more than £250 for planned work or £100 per year for work and services that last more than 12 months, you have to have been consulted first. So that's absolutely key. The landlord has to come to you and say, this is what we're thinking of doing. Are you all OK with it? And just get that feedback. If they haven't consulted you properly, there's a limit on what you have to pay. And you can also refuse a service charge if your landlord hasn't asked for it in the correct way, informing of your rights, for instance, to go to tribunal and challenge these charges. So there's a certain way to do it. If they haven't done it properly, you can refuse to pay.
And just making sure when you do go to challenge these charges, is there anything else that you need to make sure that your case is quite strong?
The weight of numbers is key in this. So if you haven't already got a leaseholder WhatsApp group or some way that you can all communicate together, and you can come forward and say, look, we're all saying this, we're all asking these questions, you need to get one right now. Service charges must be reasonably incurred. The work must be of a reasonable standard to expect people to pay them. Now, last week we showed a firm that had re-estimated the size. The thing that those leaseholders did that was clever, they contacted other buildings that they knew the company was running and actually found out that this was happening elsewhere as well. Really strong evidence to go back to them. The tribunal is that stage that you go to, and tribunals, they're not easy. They take a long time. You need a collective effort of all the leaseholders together to do it. They cost money, £100 to apply, £200 if there's a hearing. Spreading that cost really helps. But going together, into that process together, is going to make a big difference, because you need to use as much evidence as you can before you go to that tribunal and challenge on the basis that the charges are unfair.
It's a big, complicated subject, isn't it? And there is advice online.
You know, we can only cover so much in the period that we've got here. And I know, because of all of the responses we've got to that film, how varied the different cases are and how many of them are. So we can only do so much, but I would say a fantastic resource to go to is the Leasehold Advisory Service, and that's lease-advice.org. That's got a template for that breakdown request. You can download that, fill in your details on it and put it forward. That's a great place to start if you're worried that these charges are not fair.
Talking about working in numbers, that's exactly what I feel like we've done the last couple of weeks with Morning Live. So many people have been in touch about this. And
I think that pressure is going to tell, because we know the government's looking at leasehold. They're looking at it and saying, it's been described as feudal, you know, that it's that archaic. So change, they say, should happen by the next election. Whether it looks back at cases that have already happened is a different matter. It's worth knowing how to fight it.
Thank you for raising...
Checking